Hey friends, how's it going? What a day, right? Just another beautiful day in paradise. I'm Jason Odell, and I'm coming at you from my newsletter, The Photographer's Perspective. I can never find it on this space arena. Well, if you were silly like me and set your alarm for 3:30 in the morning. Yes, there is a 3:30 in the morning, and it's not ever pleasant. But there's no traffic. You might have been able to see the total lunar eclipse that I talked about in my live yesterday. And just because I'm sitting here and having a couple cups, had my coffee, and I'm just trying to stay awake today. It's all good, but I'll be fine. But thought, why not just talk about the experience of going out there? So yesterday, if you were on my live, and if you weren't on the live, just go. There's the replay is free for everyone to watch. I did a webinar on photographing the eclipse, where to find it, and I mentioned that I was going to try to go to one of my favorite spots, which is an overlook, elevated overlook that overlooks our signature uh, city park here in Colorado Springs, Garden of the Gods, at the big rock formation, red rock formation, Permian sandstone for all you geology nerds out there. And then you can see Pikes Peak behind it, and the moon was going to be setting behind that. And it's dark out there at 4 in the morning, especially on the situation where you've got an otherwise full moon being blocked by the Earth's own shadow, right? So this is oh, thanks, Dana. I've got the chat in another window. Thank you, and I was so grateful for Dana Dubois and Lawrence Wimmerman. Winterman. I'm going to say Lawrence's name right. He calls me Odell, so I can mess up his last name. Dana and Lawrence asked to share my hero photo from this morning on the Daily Whatever show, which I am a loyal subscriber to, and I try to watch every morning when I can. So go follow Dana and Lawrence. It's awesome. And it was something that wasn't at least when I was out there. 3:34 in the morning. It was what should have been a nice 40 degrees, but it was wind chill of about 28, which honestly for this time of year here wasn't really bad. But your fingers get cold, and you're trying to work buttons on your camera. And if there's one thing I miss about my old Nikon Z9, not that old, it had illuminated buttons, which was freaking awesome for nighttime photography, but it was also, huge. So I went out with this little camera, set up my tripod, tried not to slide down the hill. It was dark. And you know how you forget the one thing? There's always the one thing. I forgot my headlamp. So I was carrying stuff and trying to deal with stuff. So I brought this camera today, this morning. This is my trusty OM system OM1 camera. It's an OM1 Mark II, actually. Great little camera. People try to say it's not the best for night photography, but guess what? My pictures came out fine. And I started off with this beast of a lens here, which I don't recommend you going out and buying unless you're hardcore into bird photography. Oh yeah, thanks tariffs, because this lens costs $2,500 more than it cost just last year, and it was painfully expensive last year. So 150 to 400 millimeter lens, which has a built-in teleconverter. So I was shooting the moon for the close-ups first at the equivalent of 1,000 millimeter focal length, and it was windy. But you know what? It worked out, and I'll show that picture. If you went to my article this morning at the Photographer's Perspective, then you probably already saw the picture. So I'm going to jump into that in just a minute, because there's some challenges with this kind of photography. So once I had the close-up shot of the moon, that's nice, but it's actually kind of boring. And I wasn't going to do the time lapse this year. That was just, no, it was cold and windy. So then I switched to this lens, which is a 12 to 40 millimeter lens, equivalent to a 24 to 80 millimeter lens for the full frame people out there. And it's a nice fast f2.8 lens, so I knew it'd be fast enough for night shooting. Even then, it was very dark. We used to joke about shooting with available light. This is the joke here is we were shooting in available darkness, and some knucklehead was flying a drone overhead to make things even sillier. I don't even understand that at all. Um, yeah. But there I was, kind of in my little space, kind of hunkered down under by some shrubs, trying to stay out of the wind. My tripod, I get this, I framed it up, um, basically the way I wanted it. It was close enough. I certainly wasn't going to move, and I got a couple of shots. So let me just jump over there to show you the kind of the raw material almost. I'm going to move some screens around, and let's see if I can get this to work right. And then I'm going to share my screen. Okay, cool. All right, so there we go. So the first shot that I got was not that one, it was this one. Um, and you can see that this was shot with the equivalent of 500 millimeters, or the actual native focal length, I should say, was 500 millimeters. But on this camera, which has a 2x effective crop, it's like I shot it with a 1000 millimeter lens. And this is not cropped. This is I believe this is the full fit. Yeah, this is just fit to screen. So this is not cropped in any way. You're seeing it more or less in the actual size. And yes, I changed my font to the Star Trek font because I'm still geeked from being on that trip. So anyway, let's hide that. So I was way up there, ISO 6400, eighth of a second. So not exactly a fast shutter speed, f5.6, which is wide open. All right, whatever. Eighth of a second was fast enough to freeze the apparent motion of the moon. As I was watching this in my viewfinder, the LCD, in about 3 or 4 minutes, the moon would pass out of the screen like it was moving down, and so I had to keep reframing this. So then I switched over to the wider lens, and I got two shots. This is the more or less proper exposure. This is a 5 second exposure at 24 millimeters, so equivalent of about 48 millimeters, which, if you watched my live stream yesterday, I was guessing through the AR app, that Photo Pills app, or the TPE 3D, the Ephemeris app that I was using. I guessed I would need about 45 millimeters, give or take, equivalent. And sure enough, this was right around 48. So what you're looking at is a 5 second exposure. And I've tweaked this a little bit to enhance the foreground. If we compare this with the before, it actually looked a little bit crummier. So there on the left is the before, and I've just tweaked the colors and just enhanced things just a little bit to get the color balance where I wanted. And what you see, which was kind of annoying, was this low level haze. We have a storm coming in tonight, and it's been weirdly warm here. It was like 65 degrees Fahrenheit here yesterday, which was like 20 degrees above normal. I think it was colder in Seattle yesterday, where Dana's at, that than it was here in Colorado at 6,800 feet elevation. So anyway, that's the shot. But you'll notice that with this, the moon is looks like a full moon. It blows out, and that's because even with the eclipse going on, this is pretty much during totality. The moon just blows out, and unfortunately, unless you've got a really fancy uh, camera with a lot of dynamic range, I mean the medium format ones, you're going to have a hard time getting that amount of latitude. I'm shooting literally in the dark, okay? I could barely see the outlines of these rock formations, and yet my camera saw it, okay? So that's the good news. So I decided, there's no way I'm going to get this in a single photo. So I'll take a second picture. But before I do that, let me just mention, I want to, I'm talking to everybody in the chat. I made a point of this. Do you see how big the moon is in this photo? It is not big. Okay, I'm using the equivalent of about a 50 millimeter lens, which is, in the SLR days, that's the lens your camera came with. This was not even super wide. It's certainly not telephoto. To get that moon this big in my shot, I had to use that big old lens. So when you see a shot of the moon with a dramatic foreground, it's one of two things. It's either they were shooting from really far away using a telephoto lens and everything just kind of compressed in the scene. That's legit. But if it's a scene like this and they show a giant moon, it's probably a composite. Okay. And full disclosure, I used compositing here, but not in the way to fake the size of the moon. All I'm going to show you is how I did this to get the exposure right. Okay. So, small moon, wide shot. It's a real picture. I'm just going to improve on it. You know, I also like the fact that the camera caught a lot of these stars. And trust me, when I was out there, I did not see the stars like this. I couldn't see them. The camera sees amazing things. So I took a second picture, and that's this picture. We zoom in. Okay. Moon is still small. And all I've done here is I've just adjusted the exposure settings to get the moon so that it's not totally blowing out. But that's the blood moon. You can see the red color in there, right? Cool. Very cool. Okay. So what do I got to do? I'm going to composite these images, these two images. And to do that, you need something other than your raw editor, or you need some program that lets you use a feature called layers. Photoshop, Pixelmator, whatever you want to use. I happen to have the Adobe stuff because that's what I use. So I'm going to go from Lightroom, which I'm in right now, to Photoshop. So I'm going to say photo, and I'm going to say edit in. And I'm going to say, instead of editing in Photoshop, which would open two documents, I want to merge these two images into the same Photoshop file. Okay. So to do that, I'm going to say, I have two options. I could say open as layers in Photoshop, or I'm going to do something tricky today, open as smart object layers in Photoshop, and you'll see why. So it's going to do this, and it's going to open over into Photoshop. So we'll go over to Photoshop, get that pulled up. Once that is going, oh, Photoshop decided it wanted to go onto my other screen. Hang on a second, guys. There we go. All right, so I'm in Photoshop now, and I'm all over the place, so give me a second. All right, hopefully you can see that. And what you've got here is you can just see the first picture, but I've got both pictures in the Photoshop file. If I hide this one, there's my moon, okay? So what I really want to do is just combine these. Let's zoom down. Okay, great. Okay, now you can see the whole picture. So I've got two layers, and I really just want to reveal the top layer, okay? Now, why did I open them before let me just tell you something cool. I opened these instead of just regular rasterized pixel layers, I opened them as smart objects, which means if I double click on this layer, it will open this in Camera Raw, and I can adjust all those settings that I had before, like the exposure and the contrast. If I want to make tweaks, adjustments to the original RAW file, I can do so right here. And then when I click OK, it brings it back to Photoshop with those adjustments. So it's embedding those two original RAW files inside the wrapper of the Photoshop document. Cool thing. Now, I don't do this all the time, but there are times when it's very useful, especially if you're not sure exactly whether or not your adjustments are going to be correct. If I'm just taking a single image into Photoshop, I'm usually just fine. Okay, so two things. I need to only show the moon from the top layer, and I want to hide it on the bottom layer. So if I just tried to show the moon, it would be okay, but I've got this problem, and the problem is the blown out moon in the original image in the background here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a trick called remove. So I'm going to select the moon, and let's do this. I'm going to just choose the let's see which tool I want to use. I'm just going to use the selection tool, the selection brush. I'm just going to make a selection, which you can do in Photoshop, and I'm just going to kind of Kermit the Frog, magic brush here. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this. whole area, because there's a little bit of a bright zone around around the moon. And then all I have to do is click remove, and it's going to do this. Now it uses it will use some generative AI, and that's fine. I don't really care. If I want to get rid of those little stars that it created, I can do so. Um, let's try it a different way. Let's just let's clean this up a little bit. Yeah, forget it. It's a live stream. I could clean it up if I wanted to. Now let's deal with the top layer. All right, there's the moon. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select just the moon. So for that, I could use a circle tool, but there's a great tool in Photoshop. I'm going over here to the left side of the screen, object selection tool. Okay, and I've got it set to just box mode. And I'm just going to put a box around the moon. Oh, and it found the moon. Okay, so here's the fun trick. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create what's called a layer mask to hide everything in this top picture except the moon. And to do that, I go back to the layer side here and I click the layer mask button, which is this little tiny rectangle with a hole in it. And there we go. And now you've got the moon floating in space. Now I could clean this up a little bit more if I wanted to zoom in a little bit here. Yeehaw. Ooh, it's thundering outside. We got a storm coming in, folks. I'm going to go to the layer blending options and I'm going to just tell it to blend out if it is black. Right about there. Okay, that just cleans up the edge a little bit. And there's our moon. And there's our picture. And now I could work on this more if I wanted to. Um, but what I'm going to do is just save the photo in Photoshop. And I'm going to close the image and just go back to Lightroom. And there it is. It's now in Lightroom. And that means if I go to the develop side, I can do whatever further adjustments I want. So for example, I could say select the sky and let's make it a little darker and maybe a little bit more blue. And let's select the inverse of this and just darken that down a little bit because that is a little bit bright. And then if I want to just enhance, say, the orange rocks here, let's just select an object. Magic selection, boom, a little contrast, pop the whites a little bit. There we go. All right. So what you just saw here, let's go back to our before and after. I took two photos, this one and that one. So this one was what was this? This was a third of a second exposure, so much shorter exposure. That's why everything else is black. It was exposed just for the moon. Here's our 5-second exposure, which gets me the landscape, but the moon is blown out without doing any weird cut and paste or anything like that. I still have the same moon in the same spot, the same size, nothing else. I'm not faking anything here. I'm just improving the exposure. We end up with this, and I can polish it off if I want to, share it and print it. So I wanted to, just go on that little. I just wanted to talk about that a little bit today because get up so early in the morning. Does anybody in the chat have any questions? So I can go back to my camera view here. So if anybody has any questions, I would love to entertain them. All right. Well, I don't expect anybody to have questions, but it happens sometimes. I'm here. This is open office hours for my photography people. Hey, Musings, good to see you. So I'm just looking in the chat now because I got you all on over here in this other window. But this is how we do it. Anyway, that's what I got for the time. I want to thank everybody who joined in at last second like this. What else is coming up? Oh, um, by the way, um, I just got off the phone with a person who was signed up to go to Newfoundland with me in June, and they had some family issues, some health issues, and they can't go. Anybody want to join me in Canada in June to take pictures of puffins, icebergs, bird colonies, that kind of cool stuff? It's a week long trip, June 14th through 20th. So I have an emergency opening for that. If you're interested, just send me a message or drop me a note. And then I also wanted to thank everybody who showed up yesterday. And if you go to my webinar from yesterday, I put a link in the replay page or where you can get my night sky photography ebook. So if you're interested in doing night sky photography, go check that out. It's a printable PDF, and I put a discount code in there too. So go to that link and do that. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing and hit that heart button before you go, just because I want to see the love. I can do this and maybe get hearts or something. I don't know. Yeah, I try it. I can only do like the throw horns and get the crazy stuff going on, but whatever. My emoji things don't always want to work. So what can you do? Have a great. What is today? Tuesday? Yeah, let's make it through Friday. Let's make it through the end of the week. I know turning on the TV or it's rough. Hang in there, and I will see you really soon. Again, I'm Jason Odell from the Photographer's Perspective on Substack. Thanks so much, people. I appreciate it.